Hello and welcome to today's episode of the Work at Home Rockstar podcast. Excited for today's interview. We're talking to the CEO of Alpha Inbound. What he does is he helps people find customers on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok through their paid ad platforms. Very excited to be rocking out today with Nigel Thomas. Hey, Nigel, are you ready to rock?
I'm born to rock. Glad to be here, Tim.
Right on. So let's start off on a good note. Tell me a story of success in your business that we can be inspired by.
Yeah, sure. So this time, I know we're going to get there as well, but for the context, this time last year, like 12 months ago, I was actually chewed up and spat out of another startup. So I was staring unemployment at 29 years old, didn't really know where to go. I kind of got some experiences from different startup roles, all working from home. And yeah, there I was, not really knowing what to do next. Then basically, I made a phone call to some guy I used to work with called Josh, who's the founder of Alpha Inbound. And he was kind of spinning his wheels a little bit, wasn't quite sure what to do himself. And he had the experience of actually running ads for these big direct-to-consumer brands. And I had that experience, but I more so enjoyed the business development side and building and leading teams. So with zero reputation whatsoever, within the last 12 months, all through cold outbound sales, working from home, and I've never actually met Josh, just to be completely frank, and we're going to meet for the first time in a month, so that's exciting. But we managed to go from nothing to a 7-figure run rate in 12 months. It definitely wasn't easy, but yeah, that'll be my story of success, and I've thoroughly enjoyed the ride and learned a lot along the way.
Nice. Isn't it amazing we can do with just technology, right? You don't even meet the
Yeah.
guy.
Yeah, I know, it's crazy. Like, honestly, I mean, even not just Josh, we've got like over 10 people on our team now. I've never met anyone, which is insane. I mean, prior like 10 years ago, this wasn't possible. But now in a post-pandemic world, this is almost the norm. And obviously for the next generation that grew up online, they're completely used to this. So it's a crazy world, but you've got to learn to adapt. You've got to learn to be comfortable, and you've got to learn to love Zoom.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it's level the playing field. Anybody can start ginormous businesses right from Zoom, right from home, right?
Yeah, crazy.
Right on. Well, you know what? So it's not all sunshine and rainbows for everything, and every once in a while we're gonna hit a bad note. So I'm wondering, like, what was something that didn't go as planned for you, and how do we avoid or recover from it?
Yeah, so actually the reason I knew Josh was 4 years prior. We'd actually been working on a project together. So I ran my own agency and I brought Josh in as a contractor to help me on a big client that I had. Now, this client, they were doing like 20 million a year. They wanted help. I somehow managed to blag over a cold email that I was the guy who was going to run their Facebook ads, and it was one of my first ever clients. So it's a bit overwhelming. So I brought Josh in, but the problem was, and as again a lot of startup entrepreneurs face, I was a one-man business and I got complacent on the sales side. So one day they had a call with me, and the woman, Jennifer, her name was, said to me, Nigel, bad news. We've actually been acquired. Well, that was good news for them, but the team that's acquired us has an internal marketing team. We now no longer need your services. Now, at the time, because there was so much work, the money was great, I hadn't been doing any sales or prospecting. So that was 90% of my revenue gone overnight like that. And I had racked up from different things like 50, 60 grand's worth of debt, lots of credit cards and all that kind of stuff. And I just didn't know how to pay it off. And I'll be honest, I mean, we talk about being like the truth. The truth was, I'm not ashamed to say it now, looking back, I fell on my knees and I started crying. I didn't know what I was going to do next, but it was a great lesson, a lesson that you never, ever get complacent with sales, no matter how good you think it's going. And yeah, that's why I love business, because it keeps you honest, but it definitely wasn't easy going through that. But yeah, that'd be my lesson of hardship. There's plenty to go along the way, but that's one of the ones that's defined me most.
Yeah, I identify completely with that. I mean, the whole sales thing, like I find that I know in my journey and many of the people that I've had on the show, like it's up and down, right? Because you're spending, especially if you're self-employed, if you're a one-man band, I mean, you're you spend all this time, working the sales funnels, trying to get to the point where you're bringing in some business, and then you got to work on that business. So the sales kind of falls away, right? So
Yeah.
like, what would be something that you would do to make sure the sales keeps moving forward, even when you're working on something else?
Yeah, so one thing I've learned is everyone who's great does the basics right. And when we're talking about building your own business, if you're not going to build a team, I mean, we've obviously kind of started recruiting people and stuff now in this agency, so a little bit different. You have to get involved in management and leadership. But if you're doing it on your own, if you're asking me that, going back to what the greats do, the basics right, it's just really small, repeatable actions every single day. There's a fantastic book called The Slight Edge. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it essentially talks about doing these little actions every single day that over massive amounts of time compound into huge things. Now, if we look at sales specifically, that would be just blocking out, let's just say 30 minutes, and you might not enjoy it. Let's just say it's cold email, for example. Do you block out like 10 minutes or 30 minutes each morning to essentially do 5 to 10 cold emails every single day? And a lot of people might be thinking, yeah, well, that's not going to result in that many sales. Yeah, but the thing is you're building up a pipeline. And even when you've got clients, no one here is telling me that, they haven't got 30 minutes every single day for something that's so important to the health of their business. So my advice would just be do something that's extremely simple. If you want a real hack around it, you want to know how to form a habit, then what you need is a trigger. So a trigger could be, I don't know, your alarm going off in the morning, doing the task, and then a reward. So maybe having your favorite coffee. Do that every single morning. Do it for 90 days straight. You will build a habit so strong, you'll almost start just doing it on autopilot. And no matter how busy you get, just always keep doing that. And I build from there. And if you do have salespeople, train them to do that. Because again, in The Slight Edge, that book, the author actually owned a sales company and he taught them all of these principles. And guess what? They went on to be a multi-million-dollar company. So that would be my advice to them.
Wow. Wow, that's awesome. Yeah, there's another book that is similar to that kind of brings both of those things together. It's called Atomic Habits.
Yes, just been reading it recently. It's amazing.
Very, very good. One of the best business books I've read. I've actually got the audio book and I keep listening to it every once in a while. It's fantastic.
It
right?
is, it really is.
So now, okay, so imagine we're doing that. So now you've got this sales thing going, but you got too many projects on the go. What do you do about that? Why would you keep on sending emails out if you've got too much work already?
Yeah, because like I said, I mean, you can get complacent. And then the thing is it's much better to have too much than not have enough, because maybe you've hired some people on and then you've run out of leads. And like I said, some people get acquired or things happen outside of your control. And then you've not got any food to put on the table, so to speak. And if you make it really extreme like that in your head, if you're going to be feeding your family food, you're not going to stop going out there and buying food for them, are you? No matter what cost. So you've got to make it really extreme like that. And at the end of the day, if you've got too much work coming in, you can always refer some out and get a commission off it anyway. So I don't think it's a problem to have that. What I would say is if you're smart and you leverage your time, and we're here on a podcast, is start out with the whole cold outbound approach. But then ideally you want to try and leverage a media platform so you can kind of transition that business to inbound. And that's where you can use then the same approach, which might be writing a little piece of content every day on LinkedIn or wherever it is. Twitter is a good platform as well, or TikTok. And that over the course of a long period of time and making sure you're connecting the right people could also build you up a little community, a little audience. And then that could result in inbound leads. And that's probably a better place to be. But obviously it takes a long time to get there. But to answer your question, having two business, it's not a bad thing. So I still think it's important to do. And it's a much better situation to be in than not having enough and then having to cut back on everything.
Yeah. And I think the other thing to keep in mind too is that not every email you send out is going to lead to a sale. Actually, not even close, right?
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where and there's also, I mean, depending on your business, I suppose, but most businesses have sort of like an onboarding process as well. So from the time that you actually get on, this person expresses interest and you start, the sales process with them, it's going to take some time. So, you can be continuing to finish the project that you're currently working on while you're sort of working on the onboarding of a new project, right?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, the analogy I like to use is banging on doors. So, let's just say you bang on 1,000 doors. It could be sending out an email, but you have, because here's the other thing, not every single door's equal. Let's just say you go into a random neighborhood, by looking at all of those houses, like some of them are different to others. They're not all equal. And you don't know what's going to happen when you're going to bang on that door. You could bang on a door, you could get it slammed shut in your face. Probably a lot of time that's what's going to happen. But you got to keep going with enthusiasm to the next. And you don't know which door is going to open, because there could be one door that literally opens 100,000 doors. And that could be the next door that you open. And obviously, in the analogy we're using, it's some sort of cold outreach. But how do you know that you might be connected with someone who knows 10,000 of your ideal customers? And if you stopped because you've got too much work, you've now lost an opportunity for 5-10 years worth of business. So that would be my response to that, Tim.
Nice. I can also think of another massive benefit to doing that, small amount of work every day too, is just with your enthusiasm. Because you just mentioned, I mean, you could get the door slammed in your face a few times. So if you are desperate because you didn't do enough sales and now you need to get another sale and you keep getting that door slammed in your face, you're going to get, your energy is going to go down. You're not going to be as excited to be talking to this new person who could be, that person you just talked about. However, if you've got like this habit of just making a few calls per day and all of them, all 5 of them, let's say it's 5 emails, well, all 5 of them go nowhere, you're not discouraged. You've got work to work on. Next morning, you do the same thing, right? So you can kind of keep your energy up because you're taking just a small bite out of it every day, right?
Yeah, 100%. And one of my favorite quotes, me being typically British, Tim, is from Winston Churchill, which is, success is going from failure to failure without loss of enthusiasm. And the thing is I'd always also ask yourself, what's the alternative? The alternative is, don't send out any emails, sit on the couch, watch TV. Do you think something's going to come to you? No, the world owes you nothing. Whether you like to think it does or not, the world does not owe you anything. And that's the mindset you need to have. You need to get up off your ass and you need to start banging on some doors. And sure, you're going to piss some people off. But if you want to get what you want in life, you need to be brutally honest with yourself and understand that if you generally think, again, you don't just want to be spamming people, but if you generally took the time to do your research and you think you can help that person, then you should go for it. Take a risk on yourself today.
Yeah, absolutely. And, as you mentioned, if you got so much work coming to you, then like you said, you can start handing some of that work away, and which means that you can make choices on what client you'd rather work with. Right now you can actually choose the best clients to work with rather than just one client that will work with you, right?
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, Tim, me and you both know that most businesses, they don't have the too much business opportunity, especially now we're going into a recession. So if you're that good at getting business, then guess what? You can probably start another business, a B2B business, helping other businesses get work. You can probably make a hell of a lot of money off that. So I don't think that's ever something that's going to be a problem, or is it definitely a good problem to have?
No. I think we've convinced people that they should keep on prospecting.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about your jam room then, Nigel. So what do you,
Sure.
Where do you get the magic done?
Yeah, so you talked about Atomic Habits. Now, one of the things that he talks about in Atomic Habits is all about the environment. The best people, well, let's just say people think like the greats, they have great discipline. Just think of someone great in whatever field you're in and whatever field that you follow, whether it's business, whether it's sports, whether it's music, whatever it may be. They have the best environment. At the end of the day, if you're looking to lose weight and you constantly put junk food out in front of you, you're going to cave and you're going to, one day you're going to be tired, you're going to be down, something in life's going to happen. But if you just don't have that junk food, I think this is an analogy he uses, and you put fruit there, eventually you just start eating the fruit and vegetables. And that's an environmental thing. So do not underestimate how important your environment is. And if you need to pay $200 more for rent, and I know this might be contradicting advice for going into recession, but you put yourself in somewhere that's a better environment, then actually that could have really, really high, like the second, third, fourth, or fourth order consequences on how you approach your work every day, which again could result in a lot more business, could be way more than that extra $200 you're spending, because I don't know, for example, you're putting yourself in a place which is near nature, so you can go out for a walk in nature and clear your head every day. That might be one example. So I think people do massively underestimate the impact of a really good environment. And something for me personally, which is kind of contrary to what this podcast is about, is after working at home for 5 years, I want to try and put myself in an environment, Tim, with other entrepreneurs who are all kind of hustling and starting, and just put myself in that kind of environment now. But yeah, environment's so important. I'm sure you agree with that too, Tim, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, one of the big ahas from that book that I got was it talked about how, yeah, you see these successful people and you think that they must have this, an amazing willpower. And the aha from that book was that, no, that's not true. Actually, the people who have a lot of success in whatever it is, whether it be, health or whatever, they've constructed their life in a way where they don't have to actually use their willpower. Their willpower is actually less than a person who has to not eat the junk food that's sitting on the counter, because they don't have the junk food on the counter in the first place, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, so that was a huge thing. And yeah, like you say, when you're setting up your office, your jam room, make sure that, even for me with my music, I have guitars out. I have instruments out, because if it's not out, I'm not going to play it. So, just make it as simple as possible to just pick it up and play it. Make it as easy as possible to get your work done, right?
Yeah, just cut distractions. There's an interesting one from Steve Jobs, and he actually, I don't know if you know this, but in Steve Jobs's houses, he actually just used to have no furniture whatsoever. And there was two reasons for that. One was because so he could think expansively, because there was no furniture there whatsoever, just literally like nothing whatsoever. So he could walk around these big empty spaces, and it would force his brain to think expansively. That's what so he thought. And the other thing was to just kill distraction, and he didn't want to become obsessed with material items. And if someone as good as Steve Jobs is doing that, then I'm all for exploring, those kind of crazy ideas. But I just think, again, what a lot of people do incorrectly is they try and do all these productivity hacks and all the rest of it, when actually the inverse is just eliminate distraction, and you will get focus. Just do the opposite.
Yeah. If it's good enough for Steve, it's good enough for me. Right on. So now let's talk a little bit about the band. So tell me who you have around you and how you find them.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think as we've now we got close to hitting the 7-figure run rate in our first year of business, the next thing to get us to our next stage of growth is going to be continuing to hire great people. And I'll be honest, we've kind of struggled a bit, because at the end of the day, when you're a startup, when you're working from home, you haven't got unlimited finances. So, to compete with the bigger companies who have these big graduate programs, it's hard to find those people really good at what they do. And the other problem is sure, there's rise to fantastic freelancing platforms. We've got to be grateful for those opportunities, how easy it is to connect with people. But because there's so much supply now, it's hard to figure out who's good and who's bad. because at the end of the day, a lot of people aren't that great as well. So I think having some sort of filtering system is important. At the start, you're going to need to go out there, you're going to be talking to a lot of people. But something I found really helpful, Tim, and especially we go back to the whole prospecting for new sales, and not a lot of people talk about this, but prospecting for talent and doing that consistently. So instead of having to do these huge, like real massive recruitment pushes last minute when you're desperate and, you know, you've got these huge projects, which, you know, at the end of the day, if you don't find these people, you're going to have some serious issues delivering them, then kind of build up a bit of a waiting list and always be trying to connect. You can kind of see it's a networking opportunity. And that's what I try to do. Definitely not perfect. It's, you know, now I'm saying, yeah, I'm like, Nigel, you need to do some more of that. But if you can try and find people ahead of time and you know they're really good, then that's also a way to kind of get ahead of the curve on that, because at the end of the day, the people are everything. And if you find people who are fantastic at what they do, they're worth their weight in gold.
Yeah. I heard a quote once that says the best time to build your network is before you need it. Right.
Yeah, exactly. But no, you know, we say that, and then people just, they still don't do it, and you just got to learn from experience. But yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, and then I think it's just a matter of trying to figure out maybe having something on your phone or whatever, just to be able to take those regular notes of like, hey, just met this person's good, you know, and have them on a back burner for when you do need them, right?
Yeah, so I actually have this really great podcast I did with Drew Green, who's the founder of CEO of Indochino, who is the second fastest growing company in Canada. And this guy is like a serial entrepreneur, an absolute beast. And something that was really interesting that he told me, Tim, was because I asked him, how do you hire your leaders for like your huge company that does like, I don't know, 100 million plus a year? And what he told me is, the most important thing, and this just was great advice to me, it really helped me in recruitment and finding people, is make sure that you admire that person. No matter what it says on their CV, no matter what it says of the experiences that they've done so far, do you internally, can you hand on heart say you admire that person for something? Because if you do, you're way more likely to trust them and to give them the opportunities in the, you know, your baby that you've created. And that was the best advice I've ever had in recruitment for me, Tim.
Wow. So now, what about like have you hired anybody that you've admired before in your business?
Yes. Yeah, we recently hired some great people. And obviously, long may that continue. Hopefully it doesn't change how I talk about it. But yeah, we've actually hired, so we've got this guy who's from an incredible, like one of the biggest marketing agencies, and he just wanted to really have more growth because we're a startup agency, so he can kind of be the main guy. And then there's also this girl, and she's from Albania, you know, she's grown up, like no one gave her a chance. She's 22 years old. She'd already built a team of like 5 people. She's got perfect English. She's doing it all to help. She's actually got a younger sister, and she's doing it, a lot of it, to raise money for a younger sister. And she's got all these incredible ambitions. And she has been one of our best hires. And I generally really admire that person. And yeah, just having a lot of conversations, like it really motivates you and inspires you to do more, and not only to be responsible for their, you know, growth paths, but also just to do more of yourself. I mean, I think what I was doing at 22 years old, I was going out getting drunk at university. So fair play to her. But yeah, it's amazing to see what people can do.
Wow. Did you approach them or did they approach you?
No, so this is what I'm talking about with the prospecting. I cold messaged that person on LinkedIn. So I'd actually been cold messaging a lot of people on LinkedIn and profiling those people, because again, you know, if you think these people are just going to turn up at your door when you turn on a job ad, then, you know, you're going to be, you're going to be in for a nasty shock. Because again, when you're a startup, you need to sell people on your business because no one knows about it there. And it's going to take some convincing, because the best people, they're usually employed. This particular person was, and we had to have a lot of conversations. And it just got to the point where we managed to find that alignment. and it wasn't easy. But yeah, like I said, I'd messaged them on LinkedIn and I was prospecting. And yeah, it just so happens we managed to find that alignment. And after some negotiation and long conversations, we managed to find a fit for it.
Right on. So let's talk a little bit about cash flow and sales. So
Yeah.
what is your approach to making sure there's more money coming in than going out?
Yeah, sure. It's a great question. And obviously we kind of touched on a lot of the principles behind it. So we built most of our business on cold outbound, and a lot of that's cold email. So in my mind, you've got to be doing some sort of outreach nearly every day. And in the past few months, to be honest, it's been a bit more up and down because we've had a lot of demand. So we've had more inbound coming. But I always like to try and keep the outbound going there because, I do a lot of content on LinkedIn now, and that's been steadily building up. And also we do a podcast and whatnot. So we do get a little bit of inbound as well as referrals because, if you do great business, you will get referrals. But having said that, I still like to do outbound. So we focus mainly on cold email just because that's where most of my experience is. But I think it's key to really build systems. At the end of the day, it's not just about how hard you work. We talk about systems and atomic habits. It's about how smart you work. So you've got to have systems around it. So can you systemize a lot of what you do? When we say systemize, I don't mean copy and paste a template to send out to thousands of people. That's not what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about if you look at what you do every single week, can you build a system around that so you can potentially get someone to assist with at least parts of it, maybe a subcontractor. So it's a little bit more manageable, but the main thing is that it actually happens on a consistent basis. So that's what we've been working really hard to do, to build some systems around our outreach. And then, like I said, try and build some sort of content system for LinkedIn and to try and make that a little bit more manageable, because I've been posting every single day since March, but I'm going to be honest with you, Tim, it is quite hard to keep up with it. But I think, it's really building some strong foundations for the future, because like I said, regardless of all the cold outreach, I think it's smarter to leverage media for what it's worth. Because if you can do one thing which has the same input, i.e. I can do a post on LinkedIn or go on a podcast with you, but the output can either be one person or 8 billion people, that's a good way to spend time. Yeah. Of course, at the start, your output is not going to be 8 billion people, but the thing is it compounds. I'm sure you've noticed the growth of your podcast over time. So I think you have to also put time into doing that, because that, again, like, everyone should really own a piece of the internet in 2022 and like up to 2030 and beyond, because that's where this world's going. So I'd say a mixture of those two things, if that makes sense, and then just making sure we don't miss any opportunities, because time kills deals.
Yeah, I think I think what because people get confused by the word system, and I think another way to talk about it would be like a procedure, just something that you can write down, like steps
an SOP.
to follow, I guess, right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I think that what you said earlier makes sense. Like, if you can figure out a way to make it simple enough that you can hand it to somebody else and they can follow it, then it's a system, right?
Yeah, exactly. And this is the thing, everyone's already got a system. You've got a system for opening up your phone and going on social media, but you just haven't written it out everywhere.
And that's the point. Yeah. So I mean, some ways to do that, you can do a screen capture of what you're doing. Exactly. And then you can go back over it next and write up the steps that you're doing. I mean, everything that 100%. You do, you're doing it in a systemized way, even though you might not know you're doing it in a systemized way, right?
Yeah, exactly. And you've also got to just be honest with yourself and think, is what I'm doing really the best use of my time? Because if you can outsource what you're doing, for example, it might be, I don't know, finding some leads by looking at them on LinkedIn, and that could be, for example, a $5 or $10 an hour job. Are you valuing yourself at $10 an hour? Maybe, because you might just be getting started. But if you're not, and you've got better things to be doing with your time, you're now almost irresponsible to your clients, because you're now spending your time doing work which isn't actually that important.
Totally. So it's time for your guest solo. Tell me what's exciting in your business right now.
Yeah, sure. So like I said, I mean, we've had a lot of growth and we're really going for that next stage. So Me personally, being the CEO, I focus on the business development, the sales, the leadership side. So what we're looking to do to get to the next stage of growth and to really transition into kind of that multi-seven-figure agency in 2023 is focus on building a sales team. And that'll be my kind of big targets, building a sales team and a content team. November and December, getting ready for the new year, and it'll probably go into 2023. It's a very complicated task, but that's just a skill set that I wanted to learn for a while, and that's my big focus. We also have, we've just brought on a load of new team members, so actually seeing these new team members take on what we've done, and they're better than us in a lot of areas, and then make the business even greater, and we can see this great work for our clients and the brands that we work with is incredible to see. When obviously, like I said, 12 months ago there was nothing there, zero reputation, nothing there, and now to see other people coming into this environment and we're all being passionate and having that fun together and making this thing bigger, that's really exciting to see for me, Tim, because look, we put a lot of hard work in, a lot of late nights, a lot of, I'll be honest, shit days, but it's all worth it if you just keep going. And when you're in it together with someone else, and that's something I've found really hard as a solopreneur, actually having those other people, even if it is online, just to interact with. And people, again, I always measure my relationships of how people show up in bad weather, and when it is really bad, to have someone to go to, for me, that's so important. And now having more of a team, of course, it's a lot more responsibility, but you asked me what I'm excited about. So yeah, they're the main things. But yeah, there's a lot of tasks and challenges, and obviously we're going into a recession, all the rest of it. But in my opinion, now it's time to see the real entrepreneurs are. So I'm excited.
Yeah, exactly. Some of the biggest companies have come out of recessions and depressions. So really, this is
Exactly.
the time. This is the time to buckle up. So
Yeah.
who would be the ideal customer for Alpha Inbound?
Yeah, so direct to consumer brands, any brands who are selling physical products, doing between $5 and $30 million in revenue. We tend to work with health and wellness brands, but we're not opposed to having conversations with others. And anyone who really needs new customers, like I said, we come in there, we have a heavy focus on content, really getting your content ready for these paid platforms, and Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, they're the ones we maybe concentrate on, but we don't just look at that single channel attribution. We look at everything from a macro perspective, and we like to talk to the brands that we work with, Tim, as business owners ourselves, because we know they're going to do that themselves, and they look at their entire ecosystem. We like to do that for them to make their life easier. So that'll be our ICP, and we usually tend to work with either the founders, the CMOs, the CEOs, or the director of marketing.
Right on. So how do we find out more about your company then?
Yeah, so alphainbound.com, you can go there. You can book in a discovery call. We do actually offer a free audit for the right brands. And the other place is LinkedIn. So LinkedIn, I post every single day at 8:30, well, the time recording, 8:30 a.m. Eastern, and I've revealed the truth behind paid social. But regardless if you're our ICP or not, I'd love to connect with any entrepreneur, anyone who's doing anything great in this industry, is passionate about their mission in life. I love connecting with people on LinkedIn. So feel free to shoot me a message there. Let's have an honest conversation.
Love it. Nigel, this has been a lot of fun. Thank you for rocking out with me today.
No worries. I really appreciate it, Tim. Been an absolute blast. Let's rock and roll.
Rock and roll. To the listeners, make sure you subscribe, rate, and comment. We'll see you next time on the Work at Home Rockstar podcast.